Well, thank you. Well, for the next 6 minutes and 20 seconds, we'll be walking through the new global marketplace of IP monetization. And this is really turning into a game changer across the world, for many sectors of the economy, but in many ways for individual inventors and startups, this is truly a game changer. So a quick overview of what I'm going to be walking through is, first off, just what on earth is IP monetization? What am I talking about? A little bit of the background on the evolution of IP monetization, and with that, who the major players are in driving the economy. Touching on some university opportunities, because the marketplace is also a great vehicle for universities. So stepping into what is IP monetization? It is deriving revenue directly from an intellectual property asset, primarily through the sale of patents, where a new marketplace has emerged where patents and other forms of IP are being created as an entirely new asset class. So we now look at the evolution of IP monetization, because in many ways, this whole marketplace is less than 9 years old globally. It is brand new, but it does have some roots reaching further back. So understanding a little bit of this helps us understand how we've gotten to where we are. We take a step back, we look at the early corporate monetizers, IBM, Texas Instruments, and Qualcomm. These are companies that for decades recognized that they can generate far more revenue directly out of their patent portfolio than they can through selling products. And it makes sense. Think about, aside from seeing Watson on Jeopardy lately, you don't see a whole lot of IBM hardware anymore, and yet it is still generating substantial revenues through their patent portfolio. The new kids on the block that are really driving this new global marketplace in monetization are what are called non-practicing entities, and they are a class of investors that are out buying up patents. And some of those on the slide back, they have pejoratively been called patent trolls. But the slide here shows some of the more well-known non-practicing entities, Intellectual Ventures being the largest. Interestingly, Rembrandt has actually filed some lawsuits here in Madison, Wisconsin, so they are well aware of Wisconsin as well. One of the big changes that occurred in the monetization space is what I call the Ocean Tomo splash, where Ocean Tomo held the world's first live IP auction in San Francisco in 2006, and since has sold over $100 million in patents and other IP off of its auction floor. Another thing that has emerged now are what are called defensive patent aggregators. So these defensive patent aggregators have come out in response to the so-called patent trolls, where some in this room may have heard about these so-called patent trolls that are out suing the Fortune 500 for infringing patents, and the defensive patent aggregators have emerged as a defensive mechanism. One recent development in the IP monetization space is that copyrights have come on the block, and actually I'm taking part in this, where we're selling one of the world's largest rock concert archives. So it's been a very unique thing, especially for kind of a more traditional patent attorney like myself who dove into the monetization space to now come out, sell a rock concert archive, and then in the process, a quick trivia question if anyone recognizes the gentleman in this picture, but it's a pretty cool trip for a patent attorney to start hanging out with rock stars selling a rock concert archive. So that's something I'm happy to talk about further, because it's one of the first times ever that a transaction like this has taken place. But then sort of stepping back to some of the history about the old IP monetization mindset was very much litigation driven. So conceptually, I think of it of our friend King Leonidas here in his 300 monetizing their patents the old-fashioned way through litigation. But there are many of us who don't feel like dining in hell tonight. So there's a little bit easier way to do this. And so this new IP monetization mindset is very much non-litigation driven to create a liquid marketplace. And something that surprises many people is that a publicly traded exchange in intellectual property rights has already been formed, and it's only about 90 miles to our south in Chicago, the IPXI. Stepping forward, there are also many, many opportunities for universities to get involved with this IP monetization marketplace, especially now where some university endowments are starting to wane a little bit. Going into their patent portfolios and monetizing can be an absolutely immense source of revenues. However, for universities, it's a somewhat different different considerations go into play than in the private sector. For instance, it's kind of one of kind of our friend Gordon Gekko versus Professor Ivory Tower, and especially where the universities have public figures, and also where the Bayh-Dole Act also requires the transfer of technology for the public good. Gordon Gekko would, of course, say that greed is good, so go for it. But with universities, it's a little bit different play. But then here are some of the front-running universities in the United States right now in terms of monetizing intellectual property. And so I think probably the University of Utah is probably at the absolute forefront of it. But then coming into exactly what do I do? My firm, Myotech, as mentioned earlier, the first patent broker in Wisconsin, and my firm, Myotech, is actually one of the first firms in the United States to focus upon IP monetization. And so coming into what I do, it's kind of a two-phase step. Step one is actually to come in and actually mine through a patent portfolio, because the vast majority of patent owners and even sophisticated companies with robust patent portfolios have no idea what they own. They don't even know what's sitting there. So step one is to come in and mine that portfolio so that we can identify those assets that have potential value. And then once we find those, so to speak, diamonds in the rough, phase two is actually monetizing those patents. And really what it is packaging these patents so that we can bring them out into the marketplace and maximize the revenue for those patents. Because it's been my experience that many even sophisticated companies and inventors don't realize the types of patents that they are sitting on. So it can at times be a very eye-opening experience once you take these patents out into the marketplace. And so with that, left my remaining 10 seconds for questions here, and realize we're going to save that for the end. So I thank you, and I think I finished early.